Donald Trump pushed for TikTok to be banned back in 2020. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We know that we called it the China virus. We understood that there was a problem with a national security sense where China was collecting a lot of information because TikTok is an incredibly invasive app. However, it never got banned until guys like Jonathan Greenblatt and everyone else started to make a push for it. It wasn't until the Zionist lobbies came out complaining that TikTok was pushing anti-Israeli propaganda and fear of radicalizing the youth that TikTok was finally banned. So for this to make sense, we got to go back in time, all right? Let's go back to August 6, 2020, right? Donald Trump announces that he was going to ban TikTok, right? And the reason why they were going to ban TikTok originally was because they said it was an invasive app that collected information on American citizens for the benefit of China, a foreign power that honestly we have an adversarial relationship with. Yes, we do a lot of trade with them. Yes, we do a lot of business with them. Yes, Trump does talk to the leader of China, but at the end of the day, we catch their spies, they catch our spies, and it's a very adversarial relationship, okay? Now, when he said that he was going to ban it on the national security grounds, people had talked about it, people had discussed it, but nothing ever actually came to fruition. Fast forward to October 7, 2023, and the conflict happens with Israel and Gaza. And what ends up happening is the people, right, start overwhelmingly supporting the Palestinian plight. And the reason why is because TikTok has a very unique algorithm where it shows you what you already look at. It's a very natural algorithm compared to other platforms, at least, right? It's changed quite a bit, but TikTok is pretty damn good at figuring out what you like, what you don't like, and showing that to people. Also, if it gets a lot of engagement, it pushes that out there, okay? It doesn't have the traditional social media tech industry algorithm. Now, with that said, this is fairly problematic. Why? Because pro-Palestine content was pushed significantly more than pro-Israel content on TikTok. Now, and it was something of a ratio, something like 70% of the content was pro-Palestine versus 30% of the content was pro-Israel. Now, this is very problematic. Why? Because the people that use TikTok are young, okay? So basically what's going on is the youth are learning about the dark history of Israel and how it came to be. And most Americans, right, are completely unaware of Israel's influence on our foreign policy and influence in our politics and influence in our country in general. Most people are completely oblivious to it, in the United States at least, okay? Now, there's some people out there that have written books and talked about the power of the Israeli lobby, like John Mersheimer, et cetera, who I definitely want to bring on the show, by the way, right, where he talks about the Israeli lobby and its power. But it's a very obscure market that, quite frankly, prior to October 7th, no one fucking knew about. Okay, and I'm going to go into more detail about this when I give you guys the monologue on the Great Noticing. But we're keeping this to TikTok for now, okay? So when they found out that the youth was becoming red-pilled on Israel, they couldn't stand for it, okay? Jonathan Greenblatt, and I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to bring you guys a clip here. The head of the ADL went on MSNBC and talked about this.
We need to talk about TikTok. TikTok, if you will, it is the 24/7 news channel of so many of our young people, and it's like Al Jazeera on steroids, amplifying and intensifying the anti-Semitism and the anti-Zionism with no repercussion.
Now, Jonathan Greenblatt and other pro-Israel lobbies, okay, pushed to get TikTok banned. I'll show you guys some examples here.
The entire ruling class and the intelligence agencies who have been trying to pass this for years. A bill that would force ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, to sell TikTok to an American tech company or be banned in the United States just passed through the House with a huge bipartisan majority. The bill is headed to the Senate where, if it passes, we'll then send the bill to Joe Biden's desk, who's already promised he'd sign it into law. Now, if you remember back, there was a big...
And let me tell you guys something. When it comes to Israel, both the left and the right almost always universally agree and push to support Israel. That's why this bill got pushed through with almost no pushback, bipartisan.
Push to ban TikTok under the Trump administration, which failed.
Which I talked to you guys about in 2020. They tried to ban it under the guise that it was problematic for national security reasons when it comes to China.
But the recent outpouring of support for Palestine has breathed new life into the push to ban TikTok because TikTok has become a hub of content exposing Israel's true genocidal nature.
Yes, it is. And as a matter of fact, if you guys don't believe me, one thing that went trending at the end of 2023, okay, after the conflict in Hamas, you guys want to know what was trending on TikTok? A letter to America, okay? Now, some of you of you guys might be wondering, what the fuck are you talking about, Myron? Letter to America. Well, it was a letter written by Osama bin Laden to the United States about why they have a problem with America. And guess what the bottom line is in that letter, chat? It is the problem that America supports all of Israel's wars in the Middle East in destabilizing Muslim lands. That was the crux and the bottom line of why Osama bin Laden and a lot of these terrorist organizations dislike the United States, okay? And many Americans did not know this. A lot of people, right, bought the lie of the Iraq war. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. Oh, they hate us because we're free. Remember when Bush said that shit? Matter of fact, let me just go ahead and show you, ninjas, because I think showing is better than me just saying, right? Bush, they hate us because we are free. Let me see here. Right before we went to war.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance.
I remember watching this as a fucking kid, 13 years old. I remember this vividly.
Undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign. More than 35 countries are giving crucial support, from the use of naval and air bases to help with intelligence and logistics to the deployment of combat units. Every nation in this coalition has chosen to bear the duty and share the honor of serving in our common defense. To all the men and women of the United States Armed Forces now in the Middle East, the peace of a troubled world and the hopes of an oppressed people now depend on you. That trust is well placed.
Mind you, this was after 9/11, right? We were going in there for weapons of mass destruction and to retaliate for 9/11.
The enemies you confront will come to know your skill and bravery.
Now it's about liberating the Iraqi people. What?
The people you liberate will witness the honorable and decent spirit of the American military. In this conflict, America faces an enemy who has no regard for conventions of war or rules of morality. Saddam Hussein has placed Iraqi troops and equipment in civilian areas, attempting to use innocent men, women, and children as shields for his own military, a final atrocity against his people. I want Americans and all the world to know that coalition forces will make every effort to spare innocent civilians from harm. A campaign on the harsh terrain of a nation as large as California could be longer and more difficult than some predict. And helping Iraqis achieve a united, stable, and free country will require...
Isn't it crazy, guys, to listen to this 22 years later and realize how much they lied to us? Guys, back in 2003, there was no alternative media. There was no Myron Gaines, the debrief, telling you guys what the fuck is really going on. It was only mainstream media. So everything that the neocons fed to George Bush, he pushed out to the people, and we took it as gospel. We didn't know better because there was no alternative media back then. Alex Jones was just starting to get his feet wet. Nobody really knew about InfoWars like that. And the only way that Americans were getting their news was through this chat. Okay? So, most Americans were completely unaware of this shit.
Our sustained commitment. We come to Iraq with respect for its citizens, for their great civilization, and for the religious faiths they practice. We have no ambition in Iraq except to remove a threat and restore control of that country to its own people.
No, the ambition was to destabilize Iraq because Saddam Hussein was one of the biggest threats to Israel ever.
I know that the families of our military are praying that all those who serve will return safely and soon. Millions of Americans are praying with you for the safety of your loved ones and for the protection of the innocent. For your sacrifice, you have the gratitude and respect of the American people. And you can know that our forces will be coming home as soon as their work is done.
Really? It's 22 years later and we're still in the Middle East.
The nation enters this conflict reluctantly, yet our purpose is sure. The people of the United States and our friends and allies will not live at the mercy of an outlaw regime that threatens the peace with weapons of mass murder. We will meet that threat now with our Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marines, so that we do not have to meet it later with armies of firefighters and police and doctors on the streets of our cities. Now that conflict has come, the only way to limit its duration is to apply decisive force. And I assure you, this will not be a campaign of half measures, and we will accept no outcome but victory. My fellow citizens, the dangers to our country and the world will be overcome. We will pass through this time of peril and carry on the work of peace. We will defend our freedom. We will bring freedom to others, and we will prevail. May God bless our country and all who defend her.
Now, this was the propaganda that they pushed to get us into war. Now it's about liberating Iraq. Now it's like disconjointed, right? Like watching this back 22 years later as an adult is absolutely insane to me, right? At like the propaganda that they pushed to get us into war with Iraq. And now that we have the 2020 hindsight, we saw that that war provided zero benefit to us and gave all the benefit to Israel is wild. Now, again, with TikTok, a lot of people were pushing this information out there and people were waking up. People, remember, young people, they weren't even alive when bin Laden attacked. All they know was, oh, bin Laden attacked us because they're terrorists and they hate us. What they found out was he attacked us because of our support of Israel. And in a letter to America, he outlines all this shit, right? So that was trending on TikTok, and that created a lot of stir for Israeli lobby.
The Senate hearing in February, Lindsey Graham claimed that
because it went viral on TikTok in November of 2023. It went viral, chat. Crazy viral. Everyone's talking about a letter to America, bin Laden.
TikTok is being used to help people who, quote, want to destroy the Jewish state. Ted Cruz claimed that TikTok was deliberately promoting anti-Israel propaganda on its U.S. algorithms, and possibly the most perplexing claim of all came from Nikki Haley, who said that for every 30 minutes someone watches TikTok, they get 17% more anti-Semitic.
Yeah, which isn't fucking true. Ridiculous fucking claim that Nikki Haley made. Also, what is Nikki Haley? A stupid neocon war hawk that wants us to go to war in the Middle East and kill everybody for Israel. She was signing bombs that blow up kids. Literally signing bombs.
Politicians supporting the ban, including the three I just mentioned, receive huge donations from pro-Israel groups.
Yes, they do. They get a lot of money from AIPAC.
But the Israel lobby itself has also been vocal on the ban. The Jewish Federations of North America, one of the largest pro-Israel Jewish organizations in North America, praised the House for passing the bill.
Boom. Jewish Federation praised U.S. House for pushing TikTok bill, citing anti-Semitism on app. So it wasn't just Jonathan Greenblatt, man. There's other lobby groups that are extremely powerful that wanted the TikTok gone, chat.
Bill claiming that China was intentionally, quote, filling its state-controlled media and social media channels with anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric. They also said of all the social media platforms, TikTok was, quote, the worst offender. Now, this is an interesting thing to say because I'm sure many people have noticed by now that Twitter has become a cesspool of actually anti-Semitic, content, but there's no movement to ban Twitter. On leaked audio, the CEO of the Pro-Israel Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, was caught saying that Israel doesn't have a left or right problem, it is a Gen Z problem and a TikTok problem.
Bam! And that is huge. That is huge. Okay? He's saying it's a Gen Z problem. It's not a liberal or Democrat problem, or excuse me, a Democrat or Republican problem. It's an age problem. And most users on TikTok are what? Young people.
So does Israel...
Okay. That is very telling. Why is this so problematic for Jonathan Greenblatt and the ADL? But that it's an age problem. Because the boomers that watched George Bush, right, back then in 2003, the boomers that watch and read Breitbart News, the boomers that watch people like Dan Bongino, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, The Daily Wire, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, okay? The people that consume traditional right-wing media, okay? They're dying off, okay? They're becoming old and not relevant anymore. But a new generation of people are waking up, and this new generation is realizing whether liberal or conservative understands that Israel runs our foreign policy, okay? So knowing this, these lobbies said, holy shit, This is going to be the new generation of people that run this country. We need to censor TikTok now. We need to stop TikTok now. Okay? It was literally an emergency situation for them. So Jonathan Greenblatt, along with these organizations that you guys just saw, lobbied with American politicians to get this bill passed through. And it got passed through no problem. Because when it comes to Israel, Democrat or Republican, it goes through. Doesn't matter. They went through and it got banned. Now, let's come back to Donald Trump. As I stated at the beginning of the monologue, Donald Trump pushed for TikTok to be banned back in 2020. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We know that we called it the China virus. We understood that there was a problem with national security sense where China was collecting a lot of information because TikTok is an incredibly invasive app. If you guys look at their user guidelines, it's like they collect so much information compared to other apps, and it created a security concern. However, it never got banned until guys like Jonathan Greenblatt and everyone else started to make a push for it to get banned. Now, during the 2024 election, TikTok was instrumental in Donald Trump winning the election. Why? Because it was the first time that a Republican, in a long time, was able to garner the young people's vote. Traditionally speaking, Republicans almost never get votes from the youth or the younger people. But this time they did. You want to know why? Because of TikTok. TikTok was allowed Trump to campaign and utilize the power of social media to get elected and garner the vote from the youth. The Democrats had utilized traditional celebrity farming with A-list celebrities from multiple generations, whether it's Jennifer Lopez, Bon Jovi, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, athletes like LeBron James, actors, right, like Robert De Niro. Kamala Harris went the traditional route of getting A-list celebrity endorsement versus Trump went the unorthodox route, getting influencer support and involvement and using social media. And that ended up helping Trump not just win the election, but secure the vote from the youth. So knowing that TikTok was instrumental in his victory, Trump struck a deal to get TikTok back up within 24 hours and extend their time for an American company to come in and take over TikTok and ByteDance, etc. So that, my friends, is why TikTok got banned for 24 hours. It wasn't because of China or national security reasons. They tried that in 2020, it didn't work. It wasn't until the Zionist lobbies came out and Jonathan Greenblatt being the main figurehead complaining that TikTok was pushing anti-Israeli propaganda and fear of radicalizing the youth, that TikTok was finally banned. But luckily, Trump gained quite a bit of support via TikTok, so he felt some sort of allegiance to bring it back up. Also, on top of that, don't forget, guys, millions upon millions of businesses rely on TikTok to run their internet business, whether it's online stores, social media, selling products. Millions of companies, millions of small businesses all across the United States utilize TikTok to run their business. So we would have effectively bankrupted and destroyed millions upon millions of jobs for what? For Israel. And that, my friends, is the problem when I talk about the Israeli lobby and the power that they wield and the influence that they wield, where we were about to destroy an app that millions upon millions of Americans use for their country, for their livelihood, for the benefit of another nation's security. Give me ones if that makes sense, but now you guys know. That ends that little rant there. We'll go back to the press conference, but give me ones if you guys understand now why they want a TikTok gone.